Welcome to the Veriscope statement analysis today of Wendi Adelson's testimony in the trial of Katherine Magbanua, well, actually her retrial. And we're going to be going through the examination of Wendi on the stand, and then we're going to be running through the actual transcript and analyzing it in forensic linguistic detail and performing a statement analysis on what she has to say. If you're new to the trial, and you might be because a lot of the viewers are watching from England now, this is Wendi Adelson. She was married to Dan Markel, and her family, or some of her family, certainly Donna and her brother Charlie, have been convicted of organizing the murder of Dan through hitmen shooting him in the head twice. So is Wendi involved? And we've done an analysis of her police interview on the day of the murder and her phone call that she made to Donna on the day of the murder. And do look at those on the Veriscope channel if you haven't already seen them. We're spotting where Wendi is deceptive in her language, and does it indicate consciousness of guilt. So let's carry on with the actual trial testimony, and we will perform the analysis as we go.
Ms. Kaplan?
Thank you, Your Honor. Please introduce yourself and spell your name.
My name is Wendi Adelson, Wendiadelson.
Ms. Adelson, where do you currently live?
I currently live in Miami Beach.
And are you here today pursuant to a state subpoena?
Yes, I am.
And do all state subpoenas confer immunity?
I don't know if all state subpoenas confer immunity, but this one does.
Okay, and do you believe that your subpoena is special or different from other state subpoenas?
I don't believe it's special or different, so I suppose they all carry immunity.
All right, and does the immunity conferred upon you by the subpoena mean that you can never be prosecuted associated with this case?
That's right.
That's what you think it means?
That's what I think it means.
Okay. And do you think, isn't it true that it's use and derivative use immunity? Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, but not complete immunity from prosecution. Do you agree with that?
That's different than what you just asked before. So I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
All right, so what I'm trying to allow the jury to understand is what sort of immunity you have. What is your understanding of what it means for you to have immunity pursuant to the state subpoena?
So I have derivative and use immunity. And so in the future, a prosecutor couldn't use what I say here today against me.
Correct. But you could be prosecuted. Just nothing you said here today could be used against you in that prosecution. Do you agree with that?
I suppose so.
Okay. Have you made any sort of special deal with the state attorney's office or with any law enforcement or government agent?
No.
Okay, on that note, do follow the trial channel. They're an excellent channel. They edit the raw trial footage, and they break all of those breaks that are, annoy us so much and take forever. So for uninterrupted, raw edited trial footage, do look at the trial channel, who have very kindly given their permission for us to use this trial testimony. Now, she talks about immunity and deals. This is the retrial of Katherine Magbanua, who was involved in the murder of Dan, and she's been sentenced to life. She's been found guilty and she's been sentenced to life. However, I've had a little look at the potential Florida law and the mechanisms which could be used if Katherine decides to cooperate with the state further than she has in the trials which have already happened. And my understanding is that it is possible for the prosecutors and the judge to look at her sentence And depending on the amount of cooperation that she gives, it's at the prosecutorial discretion, and possibly the parents of Dan Markel would need to be consulted, I suspect. But it is possible that a deal can be done in return for her truthful testimony against Wendi. So we will have to see whether or not that happens. If you know about those laws, please do put them in the comments. Or if you've researched them before and you know some real detail about the complexities of that option for the state of Florida, please do put them in the comments. But in the meantime, let's carry on with the trial testimony.
All right. Was there a time that you lived in Tallahassee?
Yes, I used to live in Tallahassee.
What was the time frame that you lived here?
I was here for about 8 years. I lived here my last year of law school, so the academic year 05-06. We were in Miami for 06-07, and then I would have been back 2007 to 2014.
All right. And what brought you back to Tallahassee after you returned to Miami after law school?
Well, I went to Tallahassee to finish law school, and then we went to Miami because Danny had a job opportunity at University of Miami.
Okay.
It didn't come to fruition. He was not hired, and so we came back to Florida State.
And so your husband had a job opportunity here at Florida State?
Yes,
Okay, and that's what brought you to Tallahassee?
that's what brought us here.
And you also had a job opportunity at Florida State, is that right?
That's right.
What was that job?
I worked at the FSU Center for Human Rights, and at first I was a staff attorney. I used to represent victims of violent crime, asylum seekers, and victims of human trafficking. And then I taught various classes at FSU Law School. And then I ran something called a medical legal partnership.
And how long did you do that?
I was working at FSU for 7 years.
All right, so basically the whole time you were here in Tallahassee.
When I wasn't a student, I was working for FSU.
All right. When did you meet Dan Markel?
Danny and I we met first online, and we met when I was starting my 2L year of law school. So that would have been 04, fall of 2004.
And when were the two of you married?
We were married in February 2006.
Do you have any children in common?
We have 2 children,
All right, both boys?
both boys.
All right, during the time that you moved to Tallahassee, the second time to work here at Florida State, were you living with Dr. Markel the entire time as a married couple?
I'm sorry, Dr. Markel?
I'm sorry, Mr. Markel, Dan Markel, your husband.
Were we living as a married couple when we returned to Tallahassee?
Yes.
Yes. So by
Alright.
that point, we returned in August maybe of 06. So we got married in February of 06. We've been married 6 months by then.
And the entire time that you were living as a married couple, was that at the Truscott address that we've seen photos of earlier?
No, we lived first in a rented house. I actually don't remember what neighborhood it was now. It's been a while. But we lived there until we bought our house. So maybe 6 months in the other location. I don't remember exactly how long.
All right, do you remember what year you moved into the Truscott address?
We moved into the Truscott address. Maybe, I don't remember exactly what year. Probably, it would have been 2008 or 2009. It was before my older son was born.
All right, and you were living there he was living there in 2014 when this murder occurred, correct?
He was living there in 2014.
And you were no longer living there.
I stopped living there in 2012.
In 2012, was there a separation first before a divorce, or
Yes, there was a separation.
when was the separation effective?
September 2012.
And whose decision was it to separate?
It was my decision.
And was part of the reason...
Okay, so let's catch up with the actual analysis itself. So it starts off with, are you here today pursuant to a state proceeding? Yes, I am. We establish a baseline in statement analysis, and we see here that Wendi is able to ask very clearly, very succinctly, and very truthfully. Yes, I am. So we start to establish her baseline of how she is truthful, and also we might start to see where she is deceptive. And do all state subpoenas confer immunity? I don't know if all state subpoenas confer immunity, but this one does. Subpoena, sorry. So the opening is unusual because look, she immediately, most witness testimony begins with the basic identification and relationship to the case. This testimony begins with an extended discussion about immunity. Wendi knows she needs legal protection to testify. She speaks with certainty about her subpoena having immunity. This one does. The state is establishing for the record that she is testifying under compulsion. Wendi isn't there cooperatively necessarily, and she's not part of the team with immunity. And this protects later defense claims, if she needs them, which I suspect she will, of a deal or a cooperation agreement. It then goes on. And does the immunity conferred upon you by the subpoena mean that you can never be prosecuted associated with this case? That's right. So Wendi knows this isn't strictly true. So in terms of baseline, we're starting to see how Wendi can be deceptive. This "that's right" isn't really answering the question, is it? That's what you think it means? That's what I think it means. So she can mirror. She's being careful. She knows the actual truth. She doesn't necessarily believe that she's fully protected, but she's trying to give this impression. Okay, and do you think, isn't it true that it's use and derivative use immunity? Do you agree with that? Yes, excuse me for the transcript error. Okay, but not complete immunity. So the prosecutor and Wendi are battling already. Okay, but not complete immunity from prosecution. Do you agree with that? Well, that's different than what you just asked before, so I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? So we're starting to see the patterns, which if you've been watching the Veriscope channel before, you will begin to recognize. I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? We're beginning to see deceptive accent, for those who know what that means. Watch how our understanding shifts. From the first position, I can never be prosecuted, in effect, in her language, to yes, she agrees. And when challenged, that's different than what you just asked before. So she's being either difficult or picky, or doesn't fully understand, or is attempting to or doesn't like the fact that the jury is now going to know fully that, she is there as a suspect, in effect. And her ego is battling that, in my opinion. So the prosecutor. So what I'm trying to allow the jury to understand is what sort of immunity you have. What is your understanding of what it means for you to have immunity pursuant to the state subpoena? So we have a deceptive reason why, deceptive marker. We would mark this up in blue if it was a statement. I have derivative and use immunity. So she does fully understand. She's also a lawyer. And so in the future, a prosecutor couldn't use what I say here today against me. That's not strictly true. She has to be truthful. Correct. But you could be prosecuted. It's just that nothing said here today could be used against you in that prosecution. Do you agree with that? And look at this. I suppose so. So we're establishing her baseline. I suppose so is weak, it's non-committal, it's non-cooperative. She doesn't like the truth being told to her. She's reluctantly agreeing. When someone agrees with uncertainty, they are not psychologically committed to what they're agreeing to. I suppose so. Now let's compare this to her earlier definitive statement. That's right. And also, let's just go back to where she can be absolutely truthful. If you've seen Lucky's video where he's truthful on the witness stand, you'll recognize the truthful pattern from people. Yes, I am. It's different, isn't it? She's becoming more difficult. So, was there a time that you lived in Tallahassee? Yes, I used to live in Tallahassee. Straightforward. We're establishing her baseline. What was the time frame that you lived here? I was here for about 8 years. I lived here my last year of law school. So the academic year, etc. We were in Miami, etc. So she's giving us a lot of dates. She was actually only asked what was the time frame that you lived here. She provides specific dates without hesitation. She can remember dates and timeframes when she wants to. She will have been studying everything about this case for a long time, from a lawyer's mindset. So when she can't remember other dates, we must remember when she can and when she can't. And is it the case that she can when it's not dangerous and can't when it is? Because that might signal deception. And if we have deception, we then have to ask, why is there deception? And what brought you back to Tallahassee after you returned to Miami? Well, I went to Tallahassee to finish law school, etc. But look at this. Danny had a job opportunity at University of Miami. It didn't come to a fruition. He was not hired. This isn't part of this question. This is Wendi adding this, and then says, and so we came back to Florida State. She was asked what brought you back to Tallahassee. She volunteers that Danny had a job opportunity at the University of Miami. So this is very important to Wendi, psychologically. And also what's highly important, it didn't come to fruition. Had it come to fruition, perhaps the family wouldn't have needed to murder Dan. He was not hired. So can you see how in forensic linguistics and statement analysis as a principle, we look for unnecessary language. And this is a good example of unnecessary language. And then because we've identified that it's unnecessary language, we would then ask ourselves, why is it important for the author or the narrator or the speaker, why was it important for them to say this? And look, we've got the motive for the murder. Being in Miami with her children, not staying in Tallahassee with Dan, taking the children away from him. The question was simply, what brought you back? She could have answered, Dan got a job at FSU. Instead, we get all of this unnecessary information and look at the subtleties. It's also victim blaming, isn't it? So there are various deceptive flags which would go into the statement. For those who are new to statement analysis, and for those who have heard me say this many times before, I apologize, but repetition is one way to get good at a skill. Single flags mean nothing per se. So when we put in deceptive flags, they mean nothing per se. So we look for the clusters and the superclusters. That's very important to always have at the forefront of our mind when we're doing an analysis. Passive language is something we look for. The gun went off. Remember that. That's an example of passive language. It didn't come to fruition. He was not hired. But in effect, she's blaming him for what happens in the future. And so your husband had a job opportunity here at Florida State. Yes, okay. And that's what brought you to Tallahassee. That's what brought us here. Here she uses us. Pronouns are important. We recognize, we always mark up pronouns. This is normal and correct. It's appropriate. She and Dan came to Tallahassee together as a couple. So we have the correct pronoun usage, which tells us as a baseline that Wendi does use the pronouns in the correct places when she's telling the truth. And she also had a job, that's right. And she tells us in some detail, and because it's about her, she's quite happy to do so. And look at this though. Yeah, she's quite happy because it's about her to do all of this. She's establishing herself as a helper, a protector, someone who works with victims. It's essentially good image management. And Wendi is practiced at this sort of thing. If she's not showing off about herself in this sort of way, and she's speaking to someone, then perhaps she'll be showing off about who her friends are. But she's always with an eye to manipulation, potentially manipulating the jury about what a wonderful person she is. And how long did you do that? I was working at FSU for 7 years, all right. So she's able to tell the truth. So basically the whole time you were here in Tallahassee. When I wasn't a student, I was working for FSU. Slightly difficult. There's tension between these two. It's palpable, there's tension. They don't like each other. Establishing commitment. Okay. So, this goes on to where did you meet? Notice that she uses Danny. Isn't that strange? This is someone that she hated. And in my opinion, and in many people's opinion, she could well have been involved along with her mother and her brother, who have both been given life sentences already. And she could well have been involved in the crime herself. But no, she wants us to know that it's Danny. I find that unusual. This is close, fake close, in my opinion. Yeah. She will consistently use Danny throughout this testimony. I wonder if she does outside of the courtroom. So here we have, don't forget this early part, we're establishing baseline. Here's interesting. The prosecutor asks, do you have any children? She says, we have 2 children. All right, and the prosecutor, now here, look, she shuts off. Wendi is aware that one of the main motives for the murder, certainly from Donna's perspective, are the grandchildren. So Wendi avoids any real depth or emotion or information. She shuts down. The prosecutor has to, all right, both boys. She shuts down and mirrors. It's as minimal information as absolutely possible, even to the degree of mirroring, which is a technique. Minimal information provided. And then we've almost caught up, and then we got to the residences, didn't we? And with her house, she can't remember a lot. She doesn't know exactly. It's all maybes and could be's, perhapses and ums. Very vague. She should really know. She's been studying what she's going to say on the witness stand for quite a while. She knows these questions are coming, but psychologically, it's not coming very easily to her. Can't really remember, maybes, don't remembers, probablys, would have beens. See the pattern? So in go the deceptive markers. Again, individual flags don't mean anything, but we look for patterns. And when we see clusters, we can start to go, this statement appears deceptive. And then we can go deeper. So we've got extreme hedging as a pattern, but she can anchor it to a time period. Okay, so I think we've caught up. When was the separation? Oh, yes. So this is where we got to, isn't it? So when was the separation effective? Now, yes, there was a separation. Now, with the separation, she's boom, specific and no hedging. Truthful. This is her truthful pattern. It's actually the pattern of most people who are truthful. It's straightforward, it answers the question, and there's no hedging. So, as a baseline, which we've almost established now with Wendi, where it's convenient for her, she can't remember, and when she can remember, she's either happy about the date or there's specific meaning to her. And in this case, it represents freedom. September 2012. Crystal clear. And whose decision was it to separate? It was my decision. Clear, unambiguous, no hedging. This is Wendi's pattern of truth. So we've established baseline for Wendi to some degree here. Okay, let's continue with the trial.
For the separation, differing views on how your children should be raised within the Jewish faith?
I mean, that's certainly part of it, but not really a central decision. It was more just our relationship overall. I mean, Danny certainly wasn't, we were on different pages when it came to religion, but I wouldn't say that was...
And that's what I'm specifically inquiring about, was that part of it? So I think your answer is yes, that was part of it.
Sure.
Okay, you are both Jewish, correct?
Yes.
All right, and both of you did agree to raise the children within the Jewish faith?
We did, and we have.
Okay, so what were the differences between the two of you on that front?
Probably in the observance of keeping kosher. So I don't keep kosher, and Danny did, and that became difficult to do in Tallahassee and difficult to do with differing beliefs around that.
Can you explain for the jurors what keeping kosher means?
Sure. It's a separation of milk from meat. So you couldn't have a cheeseburger, for example, right? You couldn't have milk with a meat product. And the meat has to be killed in a ritual specific way that's been blessed by a rabbi. And you're not supposed to eat shellfish of any kind, so no seafood. There's a lot more rules, but those are just some high-level ones.
All right, and was it very important to your husband that the children be raised on a kosher diet?
It was, yes.
All right, and that was something that was not important to you?
It's not a question of it not being important to me. It just started to supersede other things that are important, like love and trust.
Okay, did that diet seem impractical to you?
At times it was complicated. I mean, there was one particular time I had taken the boys to a picnic for one of my clients for one of her children. and my older son had pizza, and Danny was very, very upset about this. He was maybe 1 at the time, but it was
Okay, I don't know if it's just me, but I've seen Wendy not in front of a jury when she's chatting with her friend Jane, for example, in the police station on the day of the murder. And she doesn't do the doe-eyed, open-mouthed, butter wouldn't melt look, but she's doing it here. And I just get the impression that she's acting. And if somebody's acting on the witness stand, that in itself is a deceptive marker. Truthful witnesses don't need to put on a pantomime. It might be just me, but this open-mouthed, innocent, doe-eyed look, I don't know. It's maybe it's just me. Okay, let's see where we got up to. We've been establishing the baseline as to how she speaks truthfully, and also we've started to get a feel for how she is when she's deceptive. We saw her start to introduce victim blaming. Here we have some deception pattern. I mean is what we call sensitive, so it appears twice. I mean. So we ask, why is this sensitive? Certainly, not really, I wouldn't say. For those who have been following and have already experienced now in statement analysis, you'll recognize this quickly. So in go the flags. Are we having self-censorship? And we're having minimizing. Sure. So this is the first time that we've seen this pattern. We're seeing the weak, reluctant agreement, similar to the I suppose so earlier. Yeah, compared to it was my decision, strong ownership. So we're doing well establishing the pattern. Okay, so she's telling us about kosher food, educating the jury. It was important to Dan to have a good religious upbringing. The prosecutor says, but not so important to you. And here we have, it's not a question, well, it is a question, but look at this, it's not a question of it not being important to me. Well, it is, Wendy, because you've been asked it. It's just started to supersede other things that are important, like love and trust. This stands out because it's not actually answering the question. This is the sort of technique that people do when they're gaslighting and manipulating. They change the entire question and put in its place love and trust. And then they might even begin to answer this. And nothing to do with your original question. And look at the technique. So here's the question, and then no, that's not the question. What's really the question is my new thing that I'm going to introduce. It's a gaslighting technique, and she's practiced and skilled at manipulation and gaslighting. So here we have the accusation, love and trust. She's asked if kosher diet was not important to you. Her answer escalates dramatically. Dietary rules began to supersede other things that are important, like love and trust. She's accusing Dan of choosing dietary rules for the children's religious upbringing over love and trust. So it's a huge leap, isn't it? It's essentially gone from diet and religion to character assassination. Nobody asked about love and trust. So as a principle, we have deception through gaslighting. Gaslighting isn't a principle of statement analysis, but in effect we have unnecessary information. But it's also gaslighting. Why this matters? She's building justification. I had to leave. He had to go because he chose rules over love. That's what she's saying. She's looking for the moral justification for her actions. And strange, isn't it, that the real morals of religious upbringing and teaching the children about their religion, the real morals, she introduces a switch to love and look at this trust. Absolute gaslighting manipulation with her mother and her brother having murdered her husband and her possible involvement, which if Katherine is encouraged to tell the truth, we might well see one day Wendi at trial. And of course, we'll be analysing all of that. Okay, so have we caught up? Let's see where we are.
It was pizza that wasn't kosher, and so that became challenging.
All right, so this was something that sort of came up as an issue during the course of the marriage.
It did.
All right, and other things as well. I don't mean to suggest that it was based solely on the children's diets, but that was something that is going to come up later, and I wanted to make sure the jurors understood what was meant by kosher diet. All right, did you move out of the marital home when you separated?
I did.
And where did you go to live when you left the marital home?
I rented a house, and I went to that house.
All right, was that at the Aqua Ridge residence?
Yes, it was.
Does 3303 Aqua Ridge sound right?
That sounds right.
Okay, and that location is here in Leon County, right?
It is.
Okay, as well as the Trescott residence.
They're both in Leon County.
About how far apart are those two residences?
I think it used to take about 15-20 minutes to drive, depending on traffic.
How long after you moved out of the home did you file for divorce?
I actually don't remember the answer to that. I'm assuming I would have filed for divorce right away.
Within a month, sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay, I'm going to show you Exhibit 59 and ask you to take a look at the exhibit. I do not expect you to look at everything in this exhibit. But I think you had an opportunity to look at this exhibit previously a little bit, right?
I don't have any memory of that.
Okay. So this is the first time you've ever seen this exhibit?
It's the first time I remember. It's
right,
very big.
Take a look and kind of just thumb through it.
Deception.
I don't expect you to familiarize yourself with every page.
They really don't like each other at all.
My question, Ms. Adelson, you can look through it as much as needed to answer this question.
She had a question. What was your question?
It looks like it's about 800 pages long, so you want me to
I want you to look through it as much as is needed to answer the following question. Does it appear to be a fair and accurate copy of your divorce file?
I mean, from the front page, sure.
Okay. Thumb through it a little bit and just see if there's any reason to dispute that that's your complete divorce file from the clerk's office. It's certified if you want to take a look at the certification.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so I want you to take a look, if you would, at the petition that is on State's Exhibit 59, pages 1 through 5.
The one right on top?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All the pages should be numbered through, so I'm referring to 1 through 5 on the bottom right corner there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that was your petition for divorce, correct?
Yes.
And so this was, would you agree that this was a contentious divorce?
I think it was made much more difficult by Danny, who didn't want to get divorced, but sure, we can call it contentious.
Not what we would classify as an amicable divorce. You hear about those.
No, it would be not an amicable divorce.
All right. And part of what you were seeking in your divorce in these documents in front of you was permission from the court to move with your children to South Florida. Is that correct?
That was part of the overall divorce proceedings.
All right. And specifically on pages 43 through 50, there's a petition to include a request to be allowed to relocate with minor children. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. And why were you seeking to move to South Florida?
I was seeking a place that would be stable and permanent for the kids and me. Danny never planned on staying in Tallahassee. It was just a question of time before he moved to New York to be with his girlfriend or had dreams of being at Harvard. So Tallahassee was just a temporary stopping point. I wanted a place that was permanent for us, where we had family support.
And why did South Florida seem like a place of permanence to you?
Right. I mean, because we had family support, because I work in immigration, there were a lot of career opportunities for me there.
Are you from South Florida?
I am.
Okay. And when you say family support, what family resided there?
My mother, father, and brother.
Was the relocation to South Florida the most important part of your divorce?
No.
Was it your most non-negotiable term?
No.
Okay. But it was very important to you?
I wouldn't say it was very important to me.
Was it very important to your mother?
She was much more looking forward to having her daughter and her grandchildren home. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, let's see where we are. Okay, so the pizza incident. Danny was very, very, very upset. She's told this story a few times. Essentially, it's used to make her points and for Danny to look bad. Yeah, this I wasn't too sure about. All right, so this was something that sort of came back as an issue. It did. All right, and other things as well. I don't mean to suggest that it was based solely on the children's diets, but that was something that is going to come up later, and I wanted to make sure the juries understood what was meant by kosher diet. All right, and then hear this question, and I got confused. If you hear it better than I do, please do say in the comments, because it's important. Did you move out of the marital home when you separated? And she either said A did, or they did, or I did, or a sort of mixture of A and I, but it came across as almost like hey, but with a silent H, like A did. Now, the reason why it's important is if she did say they did, and do listen again if you have the chance or if you have good audio, it's because she was asked, when you did you move out? If she said they did, the only other people that she could be referring to are the children. And the children are the reason for this whole crime, the murder of Dan. I mean, yes, there was some money involved. I believe that she got about $2 million for the life insurance, and I suspect some other monies as well. But it was really the children that were the driver as to why her mother and her brother hired the hitmen. to have Danny murdered wasn't necessarily the money that Wendi was going to get. So she's asked you, but she says they, I think. And so on her mind is the reason for the... She's used the wrong pronoun, is what I'm saying. But please do check. So it could have been I did, but if it was they did, then it's a critical finding, because pronouns are very reliable to tell us what's going on in their thinking. Yeah. I'm not absolutely certain, but we mark it just in case. The central focus. But I could be wrong. So always bear in mind when doing statement analysis that we need to be flexible, and we need to be open to correction, and we need to be open to changing the analysis when we receive further information rather than being entrenched. Okay. So that sounds right. Aqua Ridge. Doesn't have a problem with Aqua Ridge, does she? Now then, the Trescott residence. She's building, so she's sensitive about time. About how far apart are those two residences? I think it used to take about 15 to 20 minutes to drive, depending on the traffic. So let's have a look. It's not quite an answer to the question, is it? But it's important to her the way she's answered it. I think, so we've got a qualifier, we've got processing hesitation. It's essentially purchasing more cognitive time to think. It used to take, past tense distancing, about, so we've got a pattern, 15, 20, correction mid-answer, depending on traffic. So the whole thing about the distance between the two residences is, and this is what is difficult to understand when first learning statement analysis. When we say that the sentence is deceptive, we're not saying that it doesn't take about 15 or 20 minutes to drive, depending on the traffic. We're saying that the linguistic architecture of the answer has deceptive patterns in it. I hope that makes sense, because there's a difference. I think it used to take about 15 or 20, depending. Do you see? So just because there are deceptive flags, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not true. Does that make sense? It just means the brain is using, it means it's sensitive. There's a reason why this distance causes this sort of language to answer the question. It's being careful. Why is she being careful? Timing matters. Because on the day of the murder, timing matters. Okay, and we have a comparison. When we hear this word, the person is comparing. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. It just tells us that they're comparing inside their mind. This all happens rapidly. I actually don't remember the answer to that question. The answer to that. I'm assuming I would have filed. So this becomes sensitive and has flags, assuming actually would have right away within, do you see? Mirroring. Mirroring is a tactic of Wendy's. When being a lawyer and being careful with her words, she's using the mirroring tactic to give away as little as possible whilst cooperating. I think this is the third time we see this this technique, and we're only about what 10 minutes into the trial examination. We have clear memory patterns at certain times and vague memory patterns at other times. So when presented with the document, the exhibit, I don't have any memory of that, challenged. It's the first time I remember it's very big. Unnecessary language. She weakens her claim. I don't have it. So she's not saying that she can't, but for some reason, she doesn't want to get connected to the exhibit psychologically. So she's rejecting it, but she doesn't have the courage for the outright lie. So she's using the sort of gaslighting language that she will often have used throughout her whole life. And so it comes very naturally to her. I don't have any memory of that. It's the first time oh, so now we have the admission, don't we? It's the first time I remember. Can you see? It's very big, look. So it's this is a thought that she has. There's nothing to do with the question, is it? Anxiety about what's in there and how much is in there. Documents that she's filed. She claims no memory of seeing the exhibits before. The lawyer that's filed her divorce papers. It's very big. She knows what's in there. It's just no. This I believe there's a transcript error. This was somebody else in the courtroom. It just minimization. We always look for this. It looks like it's about 800 pages long. So you want me to? So she's being picky and difficult whilst smiling and doe-eyed, and that open-mouthed, hard to breathe kind of look that she has. So you want me to... She knows that this is going to start revealing an awful lot that she doesn't want revealed. Okay. I'm speeding up a little bit for the sake of, I don't want people to get too bored. Obviously, the divorce is contentious. So this was, would you agree that this was a contentious divorce? Now, we've seen how she can answer truthfully, but we get, I think it was, I think it was. So we know this pattern, don't we? was made much more difficult by Danny. So immediately we have I think it was I think it was. So we know whatever comes afterwards, on the whole, on the average, is highly likely to be deceptive and most likely the opposite. And it was made much more difficult by Danny, who didn't want to get divorced, but sure, we can call it contentious. So here we have a sentence which we would mark as deceptive, and we have the deception patterns and the sensitivity which help us to come to that conclusion. Was made, passive construction, blame placed on the victim. It's his opposition that's the problem. Dismissive, reluctant agreement at the end. The arrogance, the sort of callous behavior that we've seen in the past with Wendi being shown here with the dismissive but reluctant agreement. With the prosecutor, who she really doesn't like at all. So we have minimizing, we have blaming, we have distancing, we have resistance. And eventually we have a truthful statement. But framed in the negative, which is doubly important as a principle of statement analysis. It's an unusual linguistic structure, isn't it? Prosecutor pushes, no, it would be not an amicable divorce. Notice this structure. Stated in the negative. She's resisting, she's deceptive, she's gaslighting. We haven't even started the examination. We're only establishing the baseline. They're very simple questions. The relocation issue, which is really the whole hub of the trial and the motivation. Moving to South Florida. Staying in Tallahassee was so horrible for Wendi. And he didn't get the job in Miami, so it's Danny's fault. She wanted to be in Florida with her parents. For family support, works in immigration. So here, the triple denial of importance. Was the relocation to South Florida the most important part of your divorce? No. So here we have baseline for how she is deceptive in the negative, in my opinion. No. Nothing afterwards. Was it the most non-negotiable term? No. Okay. But it was very important to you. I wouldn't say it was very important to me. It was, and I think the reason it's unfortunate because I don't think we can say Wendi has now contradicted herself. I suspect she was interrupted. I can't remember. I'll have to look at the video again. Huge minimization compared to what we know is the motivation for the murder. Was it very important to your mother? She was much more looking, so she doesn't give a straight answer. She was much more, which means that other people were. She was much more looking forward to having her daughter and her grandchildren home. Yeah. So here we have a reluctant truth. And this is the final question that we got up to. So, yeah. I'll go a little bit slow. Some of you have said please go a little bit slower as I run through the end of the analysis. So she has some clear recalls, some vague recalls, possible pronoun errors, some passive language, lots of extreme hedging in certain parts of the transcript, some minimization. No, I wouldn't say it was very important. We have blame shifting. We have lots of unnecessary language, unnecessary detail, normally attributing negative to Dan in the pattern. Some physical stress and cognitive overload patterns. The prosecutor is very organized. She's very specific. We haven't even started, and she isn't asking random questions. Okay, so we've established a baseline. We've got some of the deception indicators for Wendi. We've already got some testimony revealing certain aspects of the trial. And this is just the beginning. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's analysis of Wendi. And I look forward to speak to you in the comments. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. But more importantly, if you could hit the notification bell so that you're early into the comments and you don't miss out on the videos which are to come, particularly on this trial. Okay, chat to you in the comments.